Welcome to our Therapy Flow Facebook Live Wednesday. If you're tuning in live or you're even watching the replay here, feel free to drop a like or comment. Let us know you're here. It really helps us get this content in front of the correct people as they need to see it. Today, we're talking about a topic that's been coming up more and more, and it's sort of twofold. It's number one, how do I start? How do I launch my group practice? And then the natural conclusion that follows up pretty immediately is how do I have the marketing, the inquiry flow to sustain 1, 2, 5, 10, 20 plus people, especially if you're struggling to keep yourself full. So I'm going to break down just a couple core concepts, a couple core thoughts on this topic. A couple things to know as I dive into this topic today. This is not going to be a legal, logistic infrastructure, how to do a formation, how to hire your first therapist, things like that. This is going to be a little bit of mindset and a little bit of pragmatics and what will give you the confidence on a marketing and business development level to launch and to grow this group practice. So a couple things to know as we dive in today. A lot of the group practice owners that I've talked to in the last couple days, couple weeks, right? The ones that have joined our flagship program in order to get the help, going all in on launching and hiring their first clinicians, they all have a pretty common feeling or maybe a common insecurity, which is how do I make sure that the therapists that I hire have enough people to see so I can pay them appropriately, and this is a healthy, workable situation for my first specific recruits, my first couple clinicians that I hire. That confidence can come from a couple different places, but the number one source of confidence that you're able to take that from appropriately is if your marketing, is if your inquiry sources are generating so many people that it just makes logical, exciting sense to go out and hire. If you want to have the confidence, the excitement, having the ability to say, I have a full caseload and then some, and I have 10, 20, 30 people contacting me a day, a week, a month, right? It just makes sense to go and find someone else to handle this instead of having to wait list myself or to, refer them out. Being full as a solo practice owner and wanting to transition, that's a really good indication. But what if your marketing isn't there yet? What if it isn't just producing, buku amount of inquiries? Well, I want to talk about that as both a problem and a solution. So when you're thinking about running a group practice, there are a couple big buckets that you're immediately going to need to figure out on a success level. Number one is the marketing. Number two is your sales process. How do I convert these leads enough to send them to my clinicians? And who's going to do that? What does that process look like? Number two, or three, sorry, is recruitment. How do I hire my first couple therapists or clinicians on my team? And then lastly, systems and operations. These are the four big buckets that we cover inside of our kind of main Steadfast program, but they're sort of the genres of the topics that we break out the different flows that you need to be thinking about in order to build this successful practice. So if we take it all the way back to the marketing bucket, there's the fact that you're never not going to need successful marketing. That's where it all starts. Is you need people who are finding out about your service in order to convert them into a paying client and send them to the clinicians that you've hired. And so my encouragement to you as you think about growing your business, solo group, growing group, wherever you're at, is you can't ignore the fact that marketing is kind of where it all starts. And until you figure out how to level this part of your business up, increase the flow that is coming from all of the work, the business development work that you're doing, you might never have the confidence or the pragmatic ability to go out and hire your first clinician in a safe, concrete, successful manner. There are a lot of things that can make your group practice successful, and there are probably only a couple things that might kill or really break the bank on your group practice in terms of things that you do wrong. And frankly, not having people to send your group practice clinicians is a huge one. So when you think about marketing, typically you want probably somewhere between like 7 and 20 inquiries coming in a month, depending on your like rates of conversions and other things, per a clinician on your team. If we think about this process, you initially need to fill out 20 to 30 people first time appointments on a single clinician's calendar. In order to do that, right, how many conversations do you have to have? 40, 60, 100, right, depending on your close ratio. We see some of the best practices that take insurance probably have only about a 60 to 70% conversion rate when they're at volume. We see our cash pay practices probably only have about a 30 to 40% conversion rate if they're really doing their job well, sometimes less than that on like the calls or the intake process that's coming in. That means if you get 100 calls, 100 inquiries, maybe only 30 or 40 of those are going to convert. So that's why we need to start thinking about this and what will generate the volume. And I'm going to lay out things that you probably hear all the time, but we need to hear them differently. How do I ramp this up and how do I generate the volume needed? How do I figure out not just to do this for myself, but for many? So a couple core marketing components that will drive volume. Number one, we talk about it a lot, paid ads. Facebook, Instagram, Google, maybe even YouTube and some other places. You need to hit a critical mass on those, and those can really drive a significant portion of that inquiry volume once you figure out it's pay to play, but it's kind of can be a knob that you can turn up and you can turn down, and it can go really well for you. Number two, and this is longer term, search engine optimization. This has a huge proponent to creating sustainability for your practice. Underneath of that is your website, is your blogging, is your Google My Business profile optimization or business profile, some segments that are there. And then number three is your network, whether you're brick and mortar or online. How many people know about you? And how often are you hitting that? If you feel like your network is really shallow right now and you don't get a lot from your sources, you probably need to increase volume. Are you networking on a daily or weekly basis? If the answer is I'm not doing some sort of networking activity weekly at minimum, you're probably not networking at a volume that will produce measurable results for your practice. That's what I've just found to be true after hearing thousands of practice owners talk about what did or didn't happen when they networked and at what volume and pacing. Then from there, you have some others. You have low-hanging fruit like listing sites, right? Not just am I on Psychology Today, but how many listing sites are you on? On our website, we have a list of 50 listing sites. Or if you search in our Facebook group, there's some large lists. You get on 10, 20, 30 of them, right? And try and capture some of that low-hanging fruit of other people doing the work. Have you hit a volume that can start to really speed up the amount of inquiries that you're getting? And we can continue to go down the list like social media. If you're doing social media, are you just posting nice quotes or a nice picture one time a week or just service announcements once or twice a month and expecting that to get clients? Or are you building a cyclical social media strategy that's actually going to produce volume, right? If you want more mouths to feed, so to speak, right? If you want to launch this group practice and hire 1, 3, 5, 10 plus clinicians, you have to understand that it's sort of like, cooking for one, right, is very different. Grocery shopping for one is very different. You get set in your ways of how I do things and what I produce, and suddenly you need to start meal prepping, building out habits, an ingredient list that's at a volume and a rate, right? If you've ever tried to cook for a huge populace at a holiday meal and some of those things, it pays to like overestimate, right? You're gonna thank yourself, especially in this marketing bucket, by asking the question, what would go above and beyond my need so that way it can produce the confidence that I want to go hire my first clinician, right? Now, some of you are going to have trouble around the time aspect of all of this. Man, how do I find more time for networking? Man, how do I find more budget for ads, right? You have a resource restriction. You're probably doing okay as a solo practice, but like, how do I find the space, the time, the energy in order to go and make this next transition? There was a point where you're probably working a full-time job or you had a heavy life transition and before you launched your solo private practice. And you actually had to confront the same exact question. How do I make the time, the space, the resources, the energy, right? in order to transition from being wherever I'm at now to launching a successful solo practice. And because it feels like an extension or a new part of your business, kind of feels like you could sort of continue to do the same things and eventually get there, but that's not the case. You have to understand that you are fundamentally changing how you get rewarded in this business model. Meaning, if you become a group practice owner, you no longer get compensated for doing your own session hours. You're moving away from that compensation model, and you are now moving into I get paid by filling out someone else's session hours at a volume that makes sense, right? They are working for you because you can run the business and you can fill out their caseload and you can do those moves that they either don't want to do or don't have the skill to do. So we have to have this mindset change that that's who I am becoming as a new business owner. And it's an exciting transition. You should be excited about it. But with that, you should also know that I have to now make time for the new person that I want to become on a habitual level. So number one is you are now becoming a creator instead of a manager, meaning you need space on your calendar that allows you not to just manage your current practice and run your current practice, but build and create the new practice that you want to, do the building, the meal prep, the bulk work, right? To get into this above and beyond next level, to acquire knowledge, to implement new things. So your schedule has to reflect that. So some of you need to reduce your current caseload actually, as counterintuitive as that is. The energy and the time has to come from somewhere, might reduce your pay a little bit, and that might be something you can or can't do. But if you can do that, reducing by 5, 10 sessions on a weekly basis could open up that line of sight to start to become the new business owner that you want to be. You can also just look at it. Can you give more time to your business, right? So I talk about this a lot in some of our other content. Tuesday and Thursday. I usually get up at about 5 or 5:30. And from then until about 10 a.m., I don't take any calls at all. That is what I call deep work time, where I turn off my phone, I delete any tabs that are open except for the one that I might need to be working on, and that is business building creative time. I too am trying to build the business of my future. And the only rules that I have on that time is I have to spend it on business building activities, not business management activities, right? So you need to find large chunks, 2, 3, 4, 5 hour chunks, 1, 2, 3, as many times a week as you can. Right now, that's like 2 to 3 times a week for me, especially Tuesday and Thursday, and that's all I can afford based off of my business management needs in its current form. You need to find those times to become a business builder, and if your schedule doesn't reflect that, then you won't have the space and the time to build the business that you need. So, first we're talking about creating the resource, emotional and time, and then we're talking about how are we utilizing that time. You have to have a creative business building segment on your calendar. 30 minutes here, 45 minutes there, between sessions, even on a lunch break. That's not going to be enough to build and become the person you need to launch a group practice. And then lastly is go all in on hitting peak volume on one marketing resource. So hear me when I say this. It's going to be a lot easier to scale paid ads to a degree that gives you the confidence to hire your first 1 or 2 clinicians, or to hit a critical mass on all of your listing sites, or to really make search engine optimization work for you, or to go all in on social media, right? Getting 10, 20, 30 inquiries on a monthly basis from that single source is going to be a lot easier because you can get that many inquiries from any of those sources if done correctly. That's going to be a lot easier than trying to sort of level up 10 or 20% slightly better SEO and slightly better Google Ads and slightly better, whatever it is, right? Don't divert all of your attention across 20 different marketing streams. Having some diversity is helpful because they all have some like low-hanging fruit attached if you start to work on them. But go all in, put that business building, knowledge acquisition time into one client acquisition strategy. Build it, master it, get results from it, and that will start to pay dividends, right? And we hear this question all the time. Oh, should I hire a clinician or should I like get more inquiries and other things? More often than not, you want to build out that marketing stream, right? If you say, "Oh yeah, I kind of am getting full right now just as it is from just all these different sources," but you don't have any way to ratchet that up, you're meeting your own needs, and that's phenomenal, but that's not going to give you the confidence that you can consistently and successfully meet someone else's needs, which is again why you have to go all in on sort of like one marketing venue initially. Long term, if you keep growing, you're going to master multiple different forms of marketing in order to capture better, resources and processes. But usually the ones that people are starting out with is paid ads, social media, or search engine optimizations to go all in on and really level up. So we're dealing with a couple elements here. If you really want to go from solo to group practice, or maybe you've launched that group practice and you have a couple clinicians on your team, but they're not as full as they're supposed to be, right? The framework that we teach in our Therapy Flow flagship program, the exact process that we do, and I made a post about this yesterday about gaining clarity first, right? We gain clarity on the marketing asset you need to go all in on initially. And then we help you do with that, of course, but we have to know which one we're going all in on. And then we have to restructure our calendar so it no longer is just about managing the current business we have, but our calendar in some form or another reflects the business we want to build as a creative and as a business builder, because that's different than being a manager, right? On a daily basis, I have to put my marketer's hat on, I have to put my manager's hat on, and I have to put my business builder hat on. And if I try and blend all of those together all at the same time, that typically doesn't go well for me. So I've had to segment on my calendar. That's how I work. My brain works, what I personally do. So more than anything, as I went from, one time in my life working a full-time job and building a business and transitioning to sort of like a single service provider for some companies, as whatever, and then eventually like hiring a team that fulfills, and then now the stage of life where I'm at now with a larger team and a larger process that facilitates the growth of private practice, right? Been through each one of these stages, and the day that I did, two things. I focused on a single marketing channel to get great results from initially until it started to give me the confidence to hire and build my business. And then also the day that I segmented building time on my calendar separate from current business management time, and I made those two sort of siloed, say this is the time when I build the business, this is the time when I run the business that I currently have. My business went faster and faster and accelerated even better. I hope this helps, and I hope this helps you successfully start the transition from a solo to a group practice. Starts up here and then it comes out in action. If you need more help with this, hop into our Facebook group and ask the questions that you're currently struggling with. And if you really want sort of done with you, super specific guided help, reach out to me, reach out to our team. Happy to have a conversation to dig into where you're at, maybe how we could help to see where you can go in the future. Drop any questions or comments you have, and we will see you next time. Have a great Wednesday, everyone.